In the universe, there is an immeasurable, indescribable force, which shamans call intent. And absolutely everything that exists in the entire cosmos is attached to intent by a connecting link. Warriors are concerned with discussing, understanding, and employing that connecting link. They are especially concerned with cleaning it of the numbing effects brought about by the ordinary concerns of their everyday lives. Shamanism at this level can be defined as the procedure of cleaning one's connecting link to intent. And a man named Wayne Dyer actually did a PBS special. And it's the stuff they post on fundraisers. So if you watch it, you like it, you send them a type of a donation, which I have somewhere, in storage, with a lot of other videos. But that was that whole. He does other things, or not, he's actually deceased now. But he did the whole thing based on that that passage. Yeah, intent. One thing that is interesting. There's a page that I kind of follow on Facebook called Kino Nagare Dojo, and it's put out by this guy named Peter Shapiro, who is somebody I met in Japan in the early 1970s, and he was posting because he's active. He sort of is connected kind of to the Hikizuchi Shingu lineage, and he kind of posted that he and this other guy that I guess worked pretty closely together, a man named Gerard Blaze. They were doing some work together and they achieved this particular state. And his comment was interesting. He said, there's no room for intent in Aikido. And I thought about that for a little bit, that I kind of went back over the actual sense, of that passage. And there's something where you would or could mistake intent for I intend. In other words, I'm going to do this, I intend. And what Don Juan is talking about in there is not I intend at all. The only intent I have in that passage is to clean off the connecting link between me and intent. And intent is something totally different. You see what I mean?
Well, that's okay. I'm not any clearer on what, I mean, to me, intent means a purpose, a goal. That's what intent means. That's what the word means. If you say it's something else, then you're just then I don't know what the word means.
Yeah, well, you see that part of it is a lot about what shamanism, or to some degree, I think what O-sensei was talking about. Right.
I feel like you're saying you're reaching for light, but light is not that thing that goes into your eyes that lets you see. It's something else. And it's like, okay, what are you talking about?
Well, I mean, you could also kind of say, for example, that gravity, you pick up an apple and then you drop it, it falls down. Yeah. And that's gravity. And then Einstein really talks about, a type of a space-time grid, and how certain things like mass or energy work that grid. And one of the effects is what we see and call gravitation. So there's a difference between gravity, which we see the effects of, and gravitation, which is explained by the relationship of space-time, fabric, things like mass and energy that can warp space-time. And it's really his fundamental theory of relativity in his equation. I don't understand the math, but somebody who did said it's brilliant because A equals B, all right, the equal sign. One side, you have a geometric construct. And on the other side of the equation, it's a physics construct. So he's tying together, basically geometry and physics with that equation. And so if we were to kind of look at what Don Juan said, then a lot of what O-sensei meant by misogi is that which cleans the connecting link. Activities that would do that. And the other thing that Don Juan seems to indicate, right, is that everybody has, or everything has, a connecting link to intent, or whatever it is. There's probably other words you could use. But the choice of the words was intent, right? And you could say spirit, you could say ki, you could cut and paste other terms there. But the thing is, he says that living at ordinary levels of consciousness has a numbing effect. And so, in order to, it's very consistent with what O-sensei says, which is, basically Aikido is misogi. Everybody's got ki, everybody has energy. You can extend your arm, you can visualize it, you can direct it. Like I intend to extend ki through my arm. Okay. I intend. So, then there are effects because ki is something that brings into play some other factors. But in the other way of looking at it is that as I get a little more transparent because I intend, I start to clean the connecting link between me and ki. And if I can get that connecting link clean, then to some degree, the term ki or intent or spirit or whatever else you want to call it tends to be very, very immediate. You could even substitute what? You could substitute the word universe for intent. There are many different words you could put in there. Now the question is, what is that connecting link? You see? And so if we could somehow start to work on that, then we would become clearer. And so if we substitute universe for intent, and O-sensei's words like one with the universe, everybody has the universe inside them, and they say, I am one with the universe. Everybody has a connecting link to something called the universe, which ties that everything in the universe is connected to universe. But we're here in a very kind of this weird substrata where we're caught up in that connecting link is very, very faint or corrupted in some sense by what we call I. Clear out six senses, things like that. And so I just went back to that and was looking at it, and I was thinking, yeah, because I didn't memorize it, but it kind of got very, I sort of, it's something that I've given a lot of thought to. And you actually, according to Don Juan, yes, I intend, but then again, I intend to clean that link up, which means I intend to do what you might call misogi. So, and that, then my activity starts to clean the link up. So that was just something that, let me check. Whew, we're already into it. So right now we've got this, let me see if we even have an audience. Let's go. Yeah, we do. Okay, Cliff, Audrey, L, you and I. Okay, so what I'm gonna do.
Bonnie was here for a minute, but then she dropped off again. Maybe she's driving.
Well, that's probably true. So what do? I go to the plus? No.
Good morning.
Okay, so I'm trying to get the larger. Oh, there it is. Press that. Okay. All right. Okay. And yeah, David and I were kind of rapping a little bit about some things. Let's see, I've got, what do I do here? Do I go this way? I go this way. I go this way. Whoops. I'm trying to get the big screen here effect. So I've got the big screen, but I also have, now I'm back there. Okay. Jay, David, is there, I can't remember the trick to get the big screen. I mean, I can do this for a while, but when you start going together, I kind of need to.
You need to put spotlight on your video.
Okay, and how do I push spotlight? Do I go back up to, okay, I'll go out to more. Disconnect on. I don't really seem to see where spotlight is. Where is spotlight?
I think you need to go to the participants list and then select your video and say spotlight.
Okay, Jack Wada host me. Okay, I'm going to press that and say spotlight video. Okay, all right, that works. Okay, all right, yeah, okay, good. So we started out with, sometimes you have to go through other traditions, and you realize in some sense. Traditions are traditions, though sensei. Aikido kind of is sort of based on him, but a lot of people see Aikido, maybe more in terms of Zen or other pursuits, okay? And the sensei kind of maybe had his own thing, so one of the ways of looking at Osensei would be shamanism. His view of the universe, and Aikido really is very shamanic. And I got exposed to this stuff mainly. I started Aikido in fall of '69. In fall of '70, winter quarter, I took the psychology of Far Eastern religion. And that was taught by none other than Robert Frazier Sensei, who was at that time a professor at Merrill College at UC Santa Cruz. And one of the books on his reading list was The Teachings of Don Juan by Carlos Casteneda. And Castaneda, of course, went on to write a whole series of books. And this book was actually given to me by a really good friend, Sue Ann McKean, for my birthday one year. And what it is kind of a coffee table compendium of a lot of Casteneda's books, and he chooses quotes, from this book, then the next book, then the next book, then the next book. And so one of the quotes that I've always found the most meaningful, okay, we were discussing, both David and I. Okay, yeah. Okay, here we go. And this is from a book called The Power of Silence. And here it is. In the universe, there is an immeasurable, indescribable force which shamans call intent. And absolutely everything that exists in the entire cosmos is attached to intent by a connecting link. Warriors are concerned with discussing, understanding, and employing that connective link. Now, when he's using the term warrior, it comes out of, I guess what you would call the shamanic lineage, which in some of the other books they call the Toltec tradition. And so you're not necessarily going to make war, but you're kind of you sharpen yourself in your study of yourself and your particular path by adapting the form of a warrior for whatever it is you're pursuing. It doesn't mean you're a basketball player or a fighter or whatever, okay? They are, meaning warriors, especially concerned with cleaning it of the numbing effects brought about by the ordinary concerns of their everyday lives. Shamanism at this level can be defined as the procedure of cleaning one's connecting link to intent. Okay? And so, one of the points I brought up to David when we were doing our pre-broadcast, we kind of spilled over, okay, is intent isn't necessarily I intend. I intend to stand up. But most of the time I don't. I need to go to the refrigerator to get something, or I'm irritated, I need to move around, or I'm just... So really the standing is not intended at all. I'm intending to unwind a bit, I'm intending to whatever. But if you're a warrior, you take responsibility for your actions, because in some sense, you want your actions to proceed from intent. So all of a sudden, if I'm going to stand up, I'm going to stand up. I'm not going to, I need to go to the bathroom before, of course, I have to stand up before, but and, I don't know if I'm kind of reading it as well as I can, but in the Don Juan tradition, as you do that, you accumulate what he calls some personal power. And personal power doesn't mean power over anything or everybody. It's just all of a sudden, you're in the moment, you're focused. The expression that is used sometimes, you are conscious or mindful. Okay? So, that I thought was interesting. Now, we have encountered the word intent with some of the breathing we've been doing. So I thought we'd go over this, then we go over that in motion. So let me So we've just simply gone through some breath, energy, movement exercises. Now, one thing that's happening is by actually positioning to do that, you are already setting up intent. Okay? Now I'm going to do it. I'm going to get busy learning this because it'll help me out. I'll learn to relax. Yeah. If I need to go to the bathroom, I'll need to stand up. But my intent is very scattered. So what we're going to do right now, this is one that we work. And again, the more you do something, the clearer it becomes. Okay, so that 0.2 inches below the navel. Okay, what we're really doing right here, we're breathing in. On the out breath, send the energy down to your feet, sinking to center, grounding it, whatever it may be. In and out, sinking, grounding, settling. In and out. Now for me, that starts to move energy. The energy is moving, but it's moving in too many different directions. And of course, I am by settling into a practice, the energy moves in a more conscious way. So let's go again, breathe in and out. Now, without the hands. Okay. So I am right here a bit. Anybody with an observation, question, statement? All of a sudden, just by saying I'm going to meditate for 2 minutes, all of a sudden you see you are, to some degree, in intention. Okay? In a lot of ways, you know, what's really funny for me is that if I just visualize the practice, I get much more into intention than when I'm too busy doing the practice. But that's not all. That's not everybody. So anybody with a statement or a question or observation? Yes.
Just that, I mean, nothing profound, right? Just that I could feel it when I'm sinking the energy through the feet and all that.
Yeah. Okay.
Feel it. That's all. I guess, aware of my surroundings.
Now the question I have right there, you did it with the hand motion, and you did it without. Was there any difference?
Yeah, but it's more like flavor.
Yeah, okay. But you see, the energy moves whether you move your hands or not, right? So, you know, paradoxically, I kind of find a lot of times if I'm really trying to get to intent, it's harder initially because it demands more focus. Without the movement. David, anything?
the feeling that I'm really uncomfortable and don't like doing
Yeah,
it
yeah, no,
continues.
yeah, the thing that that you kind of mentioned a couple of times, you are much more comfortable in motion. You see what I mean? So that's pretty much an individual thing. Okay, but sometimes, what it really is energy moving or focusing in. Now, when I'm moving, I'm feeling the movement of the energy. Okay, but energy moves whether I'm moving or not. Okay, and I'm going to stand up. I'm going to sit down. Let's try that. From where you are, if whatever, if you're in a chair, it's easier. If you're not in a chair, you got to stand up, it's harder. All right, but all right. Anything can be practiced for intention. Now, a lot of what I think in that passage Don Juan was talking about, the numbing effects of, kind of our personal concerns and everything, that's I. So as the I gets clearer, the connecting link gets clearer. I don't think you could say the I is the connecting link. But as I goes to self, that connecting link starting to clean off. Okay? So certain things like that. Let's I think what we're going to do. Let's just move into the other room. Okay. And for example, there's motion. Well, I'm sort of using a shorter staff. But see, at some point, let's just say that, the intent starts the energy in motion. And if I'm here, that energy is moving, whether I'm moving or not. Now, what you see is my motion. Boom, 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 boom. Okay. Any motion. Or here, here, here. Now, I'm learning the movement. Yes, that's a stage. But I get very busy there. And if I'm sloppy, don't learn the movement at all, then I just sort of stay in confusion or apathy or whatever. And so, the I becoming clearer now, that motion of the hand. I'm raising, moving my hand. I'm raising, moving the hand, and there's more energy supporting it. There's motion. My hand is moving as part of the motion. It's a little different. So, yeah. So now we're moving. Anybody? Question, observation, comment? See, I can be here and I'm moving and I'm getting exercise and I'm getting better at the movement. But really, the movement, well, energy moves. When energy moves, I move. Now, right here, I mean, still, those movements are going on. And so, whoa, 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 whoa. I'm going like this. I'm doing the movement, and therefore the energy is moving through my body. But this sort of reverberation is going on. Well, energy may spiral. I'm turning and moving the stick, but all of a sudden, boom, 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 boom. Okay. Anybody? Just now we're moving, okay? Has that changed things for you? Any observations?
So I have a kind of an amusing observation, which is I was sort of flat. It felt like I was not. So I've noticed that some of my moves, like when I raise the staff like this, and I would take a step back, and the stepping motion, the foot motion that accompanied that arm motion was not consciously volitional, which is to say it was part of it, but it was, and it did kind of feel like the energy was partly moving me, right? Like I was an object on a wave more than the wave. Which reminded me of that scene in Star Wars where Luke is saying, does the Force controls your motion? And Obi-Wan says, partly, but it also obeys your commands, right? So that which is pop culture, and I don't think George Lucas ever studied Aikido, but you know, it reminded me of that sort of balance.
That is the tricky thing right there, because in some sense, I'm going to do this. On the other hand, intent coming through you may be showing you something about how energy moves. Boom, 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 boom. Boom, 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 boom. Those are patterns of movement. Somebody says repeat them. I'm not sure I could. But there was happening in the moment with it. Boom, 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 boom. In fact, to be honest with you, I don't want to know. I just want to, just be kind of clear. And my intent, if there's any, is just to be as clear as possible and let the movements naturally occur. So there's that nebulous place. The Force, after a while, obeys your commands. Okay, but I don't think that's I intend. In fact, if you get into the Star Wars stuff, what's the difference between the Sith Lords and the Jedi? Is the Sith Lords are into controlling. I mean, if the energy were to obey, I mean, if somebody gave you a genie and you could command the genie, I mean, you could, command the genie to do all these things, both good or bad, or to, you see what I mean? Or you could say, well, gee, let's just hang out and see what's going on with things, right? You're an all-powerful genie. Yeah, maybe we can do some good, but then maybe you start to do good things and they have consequences you didn't expect. So you become wise as to what you would direct the genie to do, you know? Right? So that's an interesting one because the Star Wars, yeah. Don Juan says the same thing. He just says that, you know, he uses other terms like spirit. The warrior, without understanding spirit, learns to some degree to command it. But I don't know that, you know, you understand the type of an initial self-command. You have personal power, which is different than power over anybody. Okay? So, yeah, interesting observation. Anybody else with one? We'll just, and sometimes, you know, in some of the Zen swordsmanship things, they talk about the intent of no intent. There's just motion. Boom, 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 boom. You just move. Now you have to learn a series of movements, but after a bit, you're very easy there. It's just very easy. So there's an intent there. It's to be as clear as possible and respond to that, or that, or that, or that. Boom, 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 boom. Now, what I'm going to do right there, if we use the Don Juan model, is to clean my connecting link. So the more I'm busy, the more that link kind of stays kind of tarnished. And the freer, well, the movement's there. So a little bit of an indicator that the actual link itself, you know, is starting to be clean. Like, you know, sensei's misogi, clean. Clean what? Clean our connecting link to, you know, as I said, one of the ways you could cut and paste different terms, the universe. Boom, 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 boom. You know, you can be a rhythm that repeats itself, but each time it's there, it's new. And you can add other beats and sub-beats. And so it's, you know, moving. David, you're probably a bit more comfortable with the movement aspect of it, right? For you, the actual sitting is not quite as comfortable.
When I sit, I keep getting distracted because I don't want to be still. I want to get up and move.
Yeah. Well, you want to. This is always in motion. Boom, 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 boom. Vast. It's a wonderful universe, and the other aspect of it is very still. There's a stillness, a calmness to it. So it's all going on. In other words, having a tent, I'm just going to calm down and appreciate its stillness, its calm aspect. But right from there, movement can shift very easily into its. Yeah. Yeah. And we were doing some movements with sound visualization. Okay. So if you're using a longer one, see in here, I'm just using one of these little ones. Boom, 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 boom. Right? Yeah. But let's go through. I'm holding right hand, left hand on the lower tummy. And this is the sound, but you can go through it in silence right now, but this is Su. Put the left hand underneath. This is ooh. Now, you can go either ways, left word first, right word, but we're going to sweep both ways. Ah, oh, back to ooh. Now here, I'm going, well, Sensei calls it a right word up, but it's a counterclockwise motion. Eh. Now it's a leftward down or clockwise E. And start again with Su to Oo to Ah to O back to Oo E into E. Okay? Now, so Su, U, A, O, U, E. Try that a couple times on your own. There's an area where one of the things that gets in the way, although it's a necessary getting in the way, is I am learning the structure. So go through it a couple times. See where you are with it. If you don't do that, it's kind of hard to go, okay, what am I doing here? I'm just in confusion. But when I'm confused, it becomes a habit, so that connecting link gets more corroded. If you don't know something, you don't know it. Just be easy with it. Let it become clearer. So go through it a couple times on your own, just to kind of get the routine down. Okay, so I was funning around as you guys were working on that. sequence. So, you know, a necessary step is learning a routine, learning a progression. Anybody with a question or observation? Anybody?
It was a little different than doing it with the sound out loud.
Yeah. Now we're going to do the sound now. But see, a lot of times, you know, so, okay, let me kind of begin to get a consistency with the delivery of it. Okay. On the other hand, you could go the other way. You would just go, oh my gosh, there's something experientially going on here as I'm doing it. Okay. Now you kind of want to tie them both together. If you just get this down, you get good at it. That's good. But you oftentimes, you know, the actual experience, right? What's the experience of cleaning the connecting link? Well, that's also, you know, doing this movement. Okay, so let's switch to sound. So together. And let's go again. And again. Okay, and check. It's a little different feel. So anybody with a question or observation or statement again? We did the sound that time.
I like it better with the sound.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, you'll have a preference. On the other hand, if you're living with housemates or something, they might think you're ultra weird going, you know, with the sound, but.
Yeah, my kids already know I'm weird.
Yeah, that's yeah, okay, all right. But yeah, if you like it better with the sound. Anybody else? Preference, sound, non-sound? Anybody with a observation on the, because we've done the su, o, u, e chant before. We've covered this a little bit. Okay. These are the fire-water changes. You can do them in the middle, but you know, in theory, even though it's short and it's wooden, it's also potentially a spear point. If I do in the middle and the staff starts spinning, I don't know what the sharp end is. So I tend to do this with a long and a short. All right. And thumb up from the bottom, thumb down from the top. Thumb up, thumb down, thumb up, thumb down. Now, what you're kind of getting right there is the archetype of a center circle, aren't you? And right here, the long end is always the spear tip. And if you're doing a longer staff and you start really doing a lot from the middle, what I found over the course of 40 plus years is that the longer the stick, the more you torque your shoulders. So if you're doing a long stick, a longer staff, it's actually easier on your shoulders if you hold with a long end, short end. Boom, 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 boom. Okay. Now we can go the other way. Thumb up, thumb down, thumb up, thumb down, thumb up, thumb down. Those are the fire water changes. All right. Boom, 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 boom. Whoops. Boom. Okay. Now, figure eight. What the figure eight gives you is you don't have to stop in order to reverse the direction of the circle. Okay, so I can go this way, be going that way, but I do a figure eight and I can, without stopping, go the other way. Boom, 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 boom. Whoops. Boom, boom, boom. Yeah. So those are just things. Sometimes what happens is, Carl Jung talked about archetypes, major patterns of energy in the unconscious, okay? But, I started doing this and all of a sudden I just do the staff and going like this and like this, and then like this, and then like this, and like this, like this. And then all of a sudden, I start to realize instead of going 1, 2, you can go 1 and 2 and, which kind of is adding a couple of extra beats instead of 1, 2. It's a 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Then all of a sudden I started going, oh. And for a long time, I didn't really know what was going on with these movements here. Boom, 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 boom. And then I began to realize, oh, okay. Thumbs down from the top, thumbs up from the bottom. Fire, down, water, up. I just started calling the fire water changes. And then I noticed those sensei, doing these changes. If you watch them in the videos. Oh, okay. See, there's certain just archetypal patterns of movement. So at some point, are you really intent? Is it I intend to learn the changes? Okay. But on the other hand, where I came up with a lot of this stuff was just gone. Oh, I'm moving here. Oh, good. Boom, 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 boom. Oh. For a long time, I never knew, I never codified it. And then I sort of given an assignment. Okay, create a set. That was hard because all I would do is go into this space and just let the staff and the changes happen. Then all of a sudden someone says, well, start to create a set that you can teach. So we did the 30 movement Misogi, okay? But I had no idea what I was doing, okay? And to be honest with you, I didn't want to know, because it was more natural for me to just hang out in that area where the staff just sort of starts to move. You know, be in that place where the movements just kind of come through. So I hadn't intended it all. It was kind of like, Then somebody says, okay, now figure this out and figure this out. Tell you that was hard. Okay? You know, somebody comes grab, okay, you go this way, and calm, enter. You go this way, you go this way. Oh, you're kind of trap and form. It's a Nikyo. Go like this. Oh, it goes a Sankyo movement. Boom. Okay. Yeah. That's how the movements are sort of supposed to be. Then we learn them. And then the connecting link gets corroded. On the other hand, you know, you go, oh, hey, oh. Boom, boom, boom. Whatever the movements are, you know, you kind of put your conscious and your subconscious, or conscious, unconscious, a little bit. You start to unify them a little bit. Okay? So we do the structure of it. And for example, here, (22), (23), (24). Now, thumb down from the top, step back, 25, 26. Now, thumbs face away, 27, 28. Now, thumbs face each other, face away, face each other, step back. Okay? So we do have that. That's kind of the last part of the 30 movement Misogi. But you go like this, boom, 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 boom. Okay? And you start to get into a pretty good flow. And from there, maybe you start to go, oh, these movements interconnect. Boom, 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 boom. So you go from I intend to intention. And the better you get at going to intention, the less there is of I intend. There's just a clarity, a freedom, boom, boom. And that's kind of what you want to do with uke. If you're doing a movement, 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 a movement. You can call one Nikyo, Sankyo. You can call this a Rimi Nage. You can call this. Yeah. But one of the things you can do, okay, put the stick down, do an Aikido move. I just did an Ikkyo. All right. I just did an Ikkyo. I went from Ikkyo to an Rimi Nage. All right. I went to a Kote Gaishi. Now you're doing this right now without an uke, but your uke, in some sense, is ki, it's energy. All right? Shift. Widescreen. Yokom energy, Shihanage. Yeah. One of the things I thought we'd do a little bit is if we ever start to do, for example, Q exams or dawn tests. Now, learning. Oh. Actually going through the movements, demonstrating both the role of the uke and the nage. What I just did was Shomenuchi, Sankyo, Omote. What's kind of interesting is what the thing is. I mean, do you really know the role of uke or Sankyo? Now there are variations. Somebody may take me this way and then reverse it and boom, throw me that way. But it's kind of fun sometimes just to kind of play both roles to see whether you've got any blanks. And to be honest with you, when you're doing that, you are moving from I'm doing the technique or receiving the technique into intent. You're starting to hang out directly with the forces and feeling their harmony. And then you say, oh yeah, I see what Ikkyo or Sankyo is based on. It's based on these archetypal energies. They exist whether you're doing Aikido or not. And they can be used for purposes that are non-Aikido. Okay? It's like the Force. You know, if you're a Jedi Knight, it's one thing, and if you're a Sith Lord, it's another. Still a Force. Okay, right? So anyway, let's. Do you like that last part where you were visualizing uke, nage? Not just visualizing, but visualize. See, that's the whole thing. I can see everything in my mind. This would be easier for David than sit around and meditate on Shomenuchi, Sankyo, Omote, right? That's hard. That is really hard. But if you were to follow, somebody like Stephen Hawking, for example, he didn't stop being a physicist because he lost the use of, basically, yeah, you turn pages, you write things down, he had to be able to do everything in his mind purely through intention. And he got more brilliant. And most of us go, oh, I'm done. He didn't. In some sense, or since they kind of started to get older, he said, I'm not done. In fact, there's a whole different view on what martial arts and ki are about that I'm starting to touch. Okay. All right. So what I'm going to assign you is a little bit of a, we're just about at the end. Pick an Aikido technique right from where you are. Do the nage roll, and then do the uke roll. Okay? You have to understand both. All right? So your choice of techniques, go. And you get a choice depending on your place. You can go to the stretch or fall point and just sort of go there. Or if you kind of want a little extra and your environment is so suited, then go to the fall slowly, safely. Make sure that you don't have sharp objects around you, okay? And just move. Okay, we're going to shift back into the other room, all right? Okay, so any comment on that as a kind of training device? You go through the Nage roll, but also the Uke roll, where possible, to whatever degree you can.
So I noticed that the more I was doing it, the better I was able to visualize the technique.
Yes.
So,
you can just move the body in a very blind way, but the motion helps the visualization. Conversely, we get so busy doing the movement that oftentimes you can't visualize it. I'm too busy, right? So we're going to be busy doing something. So one way of being busy is by cleaning your connecting link to intention. And one of the methods that Don Juan talks about is what he calls stalking, or unusual behavior. If you're used to going to Aikido and you have a partner and you have a class and you have a teacher who demonstrates the moves, so you can just go there and do the movements, that's good. But then again, here we are doing something very unusual. You don't really have an attacker, but you're doing the Nage roll. And then you don't really have somebody to throw you, but you're doing the Uke roll. And so just putting yourself in a different situation vis-a-vis what you're doing can also start to clean a connecting link. Okay? Anybody else with an observation, statement, question? David, was this an easier one for you?
What was interesting is I realized that if I'm sitting still, if I have something to think of, like visualizing the technique, I can sit still. It's when I can sit still, but I don't have something to do.
That's actually a pretty big realization, because what you're doing, I mean, you're sitting, energy's going to move whether you're sitting or not. And the fact that, you warm up the body, and then you sit and you visualize where you're sitting. Well, you can visualize the whole thing when you're sitting, and that is getting you into intention or intent. The other thing Don Juan talks about is not doing it. The not doing of this, the not doing of that. So there's kind of the doing of Aikido, which means I go to class, I have a class for me and we cover the movements, and I have somebody to train with, they attack, I can practice throwing. If they throw me, I get exercise by falling, okay? The not doing of that. But we don't have a class in that sense. We don't have a partner in that sense. But we're still doing the movements. And what's kind of interesting right there, because I know that you have some problems kind of just sitting or just visualizing. But all of a sudden, you went into the not doing of that. Do you see what I mean? So you were sitting, but you were doing something other than just being uncomfortable with not moving. You were sitting. So the whole thing about not doing is another Don Juan term, right? That's all processes of misogi, right? In Aikido, we can see Aikido as being very passive. And then, you say, well, I'm being too passive. And then I get too aggressive in the motion. But really what it is, Aikido is about the not doing of the aggressive plays and the not doing of the passive plays. And those two not doings are both not doings, but they probably shade differently. And so as that, once you get not doing of it, you're kind of free. You might have to do something and that makes you always upset. These days that's hard. We're in social isolation and a lot of our movement, and we're maybe trapped with this person, that person. And so we get caught up in emotional patterns. I know I do, okay? But the not doing of being pissed off, the not doing of being too critical of the world, of which there's a lot of that. Yeah, we want to stay informed and everything, but there's a not doing practice there. And then again, according to Don Juan, that kind of you accumulate what's called personal power. And the personal power is not just, you can't do that if you're just a leaf in the mercy of the wind. On the other hand, if you're out there acting out, you're also kind of corroding your connecting link. The not doing of aggression, the not doing of passivity. All right. And I take a word like love, and love is something out there, but they're not doing that. It's closer probably to the actual full experience of what love is. So those are all looked at from another tradition. They're misogi practices. They go back right to what O-sensei says, right? There's a flow to sitting and being quiet. David, you might try this. There is a flow. I'm in a brook, but I'm a rock. There's movement all around me. In fact, I might enjoy being in the stream, but I'm the rock. There's always movement going on. And so if someone says, focus on stillness, I get a little antsy too. What I kind of find, for example, is the stillness has a different sort of aliveness to it, which I actually like. And sometimes I get cranky when I'm supposed to move. So I'm, I like movement too, but I'm kind of the opposite sometimes. So that's called not doing. And the fact that you can sit there and visualize, the thing is, you're not just thinking about it, you're visualizing, feeling it in a still state. Likewise, I'm moving, like all this stuff right here. I'm too busy. It's like boom, 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 boom. There's a stillness that's accompanying or part of all these changes, which I like. And when I'm in that particular place, I'm not so judgmental. I'm not locked in. I'm not corroding my connecting link. Okay. So, anybody else with a question or observation or statement? Okay. I guess we are right about there. The Castaneda books are interesting because, the first book, The Teachings of Don Juan, is the only one that I've never reread. Okay. It was very popular in the late 60s. Castaneda was a graduate student in anthropology at UCLA. And the first book, Teachings of Don Juan, was his doctoral thesis. And some people kind of said, well, this guy, he just made it all up. And he just did it to make money. But the fact is, his first book was published in a very limited distribution by the University of California Press, The Teachings of Don Juan, a Yaqui way of knowledge. It's not the best way to all of a sudden become a famous author, writing lots of books and to some degree making a lot of money. But because of the nature of that first book, which is a lot about hallucinogens, which is a part of shamanism, or an aspect of it, people really embraced it. So it kind of got a general distribution, but from another publishing house, and then it took off. It was an underground bestseller. And so Robert Frager put it on the reading list of the Psychology of Far Eastern Religion because it was about altered states of consciousness. And to some degree, a Zen master or somebody like O-sensei, they were in an altered state. They're not in what you would call, quote unquote, ordinary reality, which is where the connecting link is corroded. They have a presence here. They are people as well as whatever, but they are in another state of consciousness. And so the Teachings of Don Juan was one of the more influential books on that reading list for the Psychology of Far Eastern Religion. Then I went off to 2 years of graduate work at UC Davis. And I was doing Russian literature, and I was really out of sorts. And I'm having a lot of trouble. Then I go to a corner pharmacy, which is a couple blocks off campus, because they sell comic books. And so I was going to go buy some comics to stay sane. And all of a sudden I look at this issue of Esquire magazine. And it has another book by Carlos Casteneda, The Separate Reality. By then, of course, the first book was quite, successful. But all of a sudden, his stuff is being written up in Esquire magazine, which I don't normally read, but I bought the magazine. And I just remember, sometimes you just make a subconscious choice. I'm a student, I'm doing this and that. But I'm meditating, doing Tai Chi, doing some Aikido, although there wasn't a lot of it. And I read these passages from Castaneda. That's what I want to do. That's what I want to be. I was very influential. And then as I kept going, you know, I think I'm in, a book that came out before I went to Japan. He started writing, and it was Journey to Ixtlan. And then when I was in Japan, my second stay, Tales of Power came out. And I do believe that Mary Heine Sensei sent me a copy of it. So somehow, you know, I just kept going with the Don Juan sequence. But I remember in that very first course, Psychology of Far Eastern Religion, that book, even though it was very different from the other books, because what happens is that the other books, the actual drug experiences, which is one of the reasons why the teachings of Don Juan were so successful. Well, they started to be they were minimalized, and finally, you know, it was a lot about him understanding these other states of consciousness with Don Juan without the drugs. In fact, later, Don Juan said, I got a whole group of people who study with me. You're the only one that's actually had the drug experiences. He said, the reason is you were so tightly wound up, I had to loosen you up. And so, yeah, we did the session of that first stage of the learning with the drugs. And what did the drugs do? They took Carlos to a place at the end of the teachings where he just quit. He ran into what Don Juan called the first of the four enemies to a person, can be a man or woman of knowledge. It's fear, clarity, power, finally old age. And so as he started to try to put together the experiences, you know, in the drug-induced states, it just got too scary for him. And so he quit. And then one of the things I think he said at the beginning or the end of the first book is that, you know, Don Juan, he would see Don Juan, he said, Don Juan, I'm done. This is too scary. And Don Juan would say, you're not done, but you think you're done. And Don Juan would always treat him like he was still studying shamanism. And eventually he went back for more, and the training past the drugs started. In fact, I don't think that they really go into the drugs much at all. There's a little bit of it in the second book, Separate Reality. Journey to Ixtlan, it's all about training, you know, and, you know, it's about being a warrior, not a basketball player or somebody who's a fighter, but about kind of honing your behavior to clean the connecting link to intent. So anyway, that's about it for today. We didn't, you know, we kind of, you know, sensei stuff is hard. But one of the things in the first book is you have allies, you have energies or beings from other realms that come in and they're your allies. You know, and really what it is, they can take you to inconceivable places. And that's not drugs. At that particular point, you accumulate the personal power so you can handle the exchanges with these forces when they take you to other dimensions. So I always found that stuff fascinating. Okay, so if you're into it, fine. If not, again, we kind of tried to tie a lot of what Sensei is talking about when he says misogi, and to what oftentimes, some of you may find the shamanistic explanation to be easier than Sensei's explanations. Okay, And what was really interesting was when I got back, no, I was still in Japan, and Robert Fraser had been training there. And so I got a letter from him. You know, those were, there was no email. So, you know, you get a letter, oh, when you open it up, and he says, well, guess who I met in downtown Santa Cruz? He said, Carlos Casteneda. And he said, we talked for a bit. So, we, you know, Robert Fraser lived a little ways off campus. He had a house on Spring Street, which I used to go to because he would do meditation sessions and things there. And what happened there was Castaneda went back and they started talking. So Robert Fraser had he spent a period, we overlapped in Shingu. And Robert Fraser was going through all the really almost insane things that went on there. If you read Linda Holliday Sensei's book, it's a really good book, but it doesn't cover a lot of what went on. And if you watch the old TV series Buffy the Vampire Slayer, my description of Shingu was it was the quote unquote hell mouth. And all the things that went on, it was like Hikizushi Sensei was kind of like the nexus for all these things to go around. And so what Castaneda said was very interesting. He said, you know, that's what it was like to be around Don Juan. The things were always being stirred up. And, you know, I don't think Hikizuchi Sensei was like, you know, I'm no sensei's level by any stretch of the imagination. But there was something about that place which was like a power spot. And when you were there, you were, and so when Robert Fraser was describing, you know, the absolute craziness that Hikizuchi Sensei, you know, seemed to attract. And if you were around him, you got caught up in it. I mean, literally. He said that was exactly the way it was around Don Juan. But what Castaneda also said is what he learned was really what that craziness was power. And so what you're training, in other words, a lot of what the connecting link is when you clean it off, you accrue something called personal power. Hikizuchi Sensei and Sensei use different words. Like in their particular thing, there was your physical training, stay on the mat. And there was a larger training, it was called your shugyo. And that was kind of your deeper study of yourself and the universe and these energies and forces. And I do know this. It's like, you know, my first day there, you know, I'm a kid from Northern California. I go there, you know, I'm genetically Japanese. I really don't speak the language. In fact, I studied intensive Russian. So I'm trying to speak Japanese and all that comes out is Russian, you know, in my mind. I'm going, holy crap, you know? I remember one time Tojima Sensei looks at me and he uses the term speechka. I go, oh my God, that's match in Russian, you know? And I found out that there were some Russian programs where they would teach Russian speech. And Tojima Sensei, of course, you know, he knew a couple of Russian words, right? So, you know, the language was bad and everything. So I spent, you know, a short year there. And then I go back, but I'm studying, and then I go back, I continue to study. And, you know, wasn't necessarily thinking about going back to Japan, but Hikizuchi Sensei comes for a month, stays at my parents' house. And so I'm able to really, every day I got to use the Japanese that I'm studying. then I just remember, it's like the first day there was kind of like a leaf at the mercy of the wind, it's like, oh my God, can't speak the language, I don't know what's going on, da, da, da. And then all of a sudden, I go that second stay. In fact, I get off the plane and I'm going through customs. There's somebody I can't, I don't remember his name, but he's having a horrible time. And so just for a night, I take him under my wing. I kind of co-taught with Linda Sensei, Mary Sensei, we taught some employees that were being trained in southern Japan at a luxury hotel. That chain was going to open in Tokyo. So I said to the cab driver, drive us to the Tokyo Urashima Hotel. So I go in there, and all the people working, this is late, by the way, they recognize me. And my Japanese is better, so I'm able to kind of get a room and everything like that. And even, get tickets for him and me the following day. I'm going to go take a train to Shingu, and he's somewhere else. But, being totally helpless, all of a sudden I got a command of things. That's personal power, right? Now I remember I'm there for about a month training. Then I got to go back to Shingu because the reason I'm going in Shingu was to go to grad school, which I got a full-time fellowship at Monash University to study Russian literature, believe it or not. I wound up never going because I just decided I didn't want to be a student anymore. But I needed to clear up some visa stuff, so I went to Tokyo. After hanging around Hikizuchi Sensei for a month, in Tokyo was bustling and everything's slow motion. I got a Hombu dojo. I trained there for a week because one of the people that I kind of knew would train in Shingu, he would crash in my dorm room, place I was staying. So, accumulate some stuff. So I, crashed along with a friend. She came with me, and we just sort of stayed with this really neat guy, Danielle, who unfortunately passed on some years ago. The training was demanding, but it was like it was slow motion. It was like, wow. And then, I just remember a couple of things. I used to train in the morning class, and the teacher was this man named Mashta, He was about a sandan. At the time, I was just a Shodan candidate. I get back, I was a Shodan, and he was really solid. And Shingu, he didn't just fall, he did Kokyu-ho, and, he would. So, he wasn't training that much, but a special training was there, so we did Kokyu-ho, and I'm expecting that, and all of a sudden he falls down. I'm going, huh? So, yeah, you're just trying to be nice to me. He said, no. And there's another guy named Higashi. There was a Mr. Nishi, which is Mr. West. There was a Mr. East, Mr. Higashi. And Higashi was really good. Of the non-teachers, he was by far the best. And, he was a real, it was like training with him was a real test. And all of a sudden, I'm doing that same exercise seated with him. He's going down. And he kind of looks at me and said, and I look at myself, you don't have to do that stuff. Train like, just be honest. And no, it's being honest. And he says, for whatever reason, you're so much better than you were in your first day. I said, really? And, you just don't notice it because you're kind of, and so he said, yeah. He says, in fact, you are the talk of the dojo. I went, oh. I didn't think that was going on, but that's personal power. It had nothing to do with, I know the technique better. It was kind of like my life had a flow to it, had a purpose. And then what I found is that, you reach that point like Casteneda did at the end of the first book, and things get very scary. And Robert Frazier was leaving UC Santa Cruz to start his own university. And so teaching position opened up. So I went back and grabbed it, started teaching at UC Santa Cruz for a bit. And it was kind of like, I'm thinking, you know, I got to get out of this right now because I'm way in over my head. Don Juan would tell Carlos, says, look, you're around me right now, but you're too open. If you stick around me with these forces the way they are around you right now, you're going to die. So go back. Go into your ordinary world, be ordinary for a while. Let this gap in you heal. Then come back. So that's what I did. I went back, taught, got married. Whole bunch of stuff happened. My mom died. The Warriors won a championship in 1975. It's really interesting if I go back into that. But that particular stay, you know, it was kind of like the whole thing around the personal power made sense to me. Okay. Anyway, that's anybody with a question, or I'm gonna kind of let David, if he wants, take over. Okay, and host the rest of the meeting. David, so on your end, you need to kind of take control because I'm about to leave. So I thank you very much, everybody who tuned in today. Okay.
Thank you, Sensei.
Take care.
Alrighty. Well, thank you, David. Hi, Bonnie. Where are you?
Thank you. Forgot the city I'm just approaching, nearby a bridge, but I briefly checked in and lost signal right after I checked in. So I'll watch the class on YouTube and
Sure.
use time travel to be present.
Excellent. Alrighty. Well, thank you, David.
Thank you, David.
And
Thank you.
see you guys anon in the future.
Ah.
It's a Shakespearean word.
On and on and on and on and on.
And on. Not a bunch of ons, just one on. And on.
So.
Okay, bye.
All right, bye. Have a great day, everyone.